As for the hazing deaths, what do you just personally think kind of allowed the people that set forth the actions that caused the deaths? What do you think allowed them to have the mentality that that was okay for the fraternity? And where do you think that those ideas kind of came from to have the pledges do those types of things?
I don't know. I mean, I think that I don't know personally because I don't understand it. I'm not a joiner. I don't join anything. Yeah, I'm not involved in any group that I actually have to show up and be accountable to, and so I don't really understand that sort of collective mentality in that way, and I also the kinds of hazing that I've been involved in, like academia has its own set of hazing rituals and like around getting tenure and things like that they don't really want to think of as hazing, obviously, but it kind of is.
But they don't lock you in a basement. They just put you in front of a committee of really mean
Yeah,
people.
exactly. I mean, you have to have these exams, and then you have to you have to defend your dissertation, and then you have to. I mean, there are all these levels of that, and I think that organizations, they want to have certain like tests of loyalty or accomplishment in order for people to make it in. And I think that when you have things like that, I mean, I think that young men do weird things. I mean, and so when you look at any of these organizations relative to things that young men do, whether it's like, the Navy initiating people for crossing the line ceremonies when you go across the equator, or whether it's a fraternity, or whether it's the other branches of the armed service and stuff, there are all kinds of like hazing rituals that go along with that, and there kind of always have been. And that's not to say that it's good or it shouldn't change, but there always have been these certain tests of like loyalty that have gone with initiation into a secret society or a semi-secret society or whatever it is. And so I think that there's maybe a tendency to up the ante on those, like, oh, well, it's got to be a little bit harder than the one I went through. Or there might also be a sort of thing that, like, well, I went through, there is a thing like, I went through this, so you need to go through it too. And so, what that, the mentality of that, but I imagine that how it works is that people who get into that thing, or some of them, feel that it should be a little bit more difficult for the next person. And I think that that's how it raises the stakes. So it goes from you're gonna wear a dress to, we're gonna beat you up or something, And often the sort of rituals are connected to the activities, I mean, like, I think that like some groups of young men that they fight each other to get in, but I don't know what the fraternity ones, it seems like I don't know how they invent these sort of rituals. The water intoxication thing, that was interesting because there was kind of a fad for that. There was at the same time near the same time there was a death from a water intoxication that a radio station sponsored. They just had like a contest to see how much water people could drink, and then somebody died from it. And so I think that part of it, they probably thought, obviously incorrectly, that like this will be something that will be like really kind of like horrific at the time, but it won't do any kind of permanent damage. And I think that they were looking for things like that, because obviously you don't want to I guess torture your members so much that then they hate you and resent it for the rest of the time, So I think that they're looking for these challenges that seem really difficult, but then after they're over, they're harmless, and they turn out to not be harmless. And then I think also, and so I think that that's usually the motivation. But I think also that at some point, when there are certain people who, when in a position to exercise power over other people. It's a Stanford prison experiment thing, you know, and things go bad, and they do horrible things to each other. So I don't know. I think that when you have when you're involved in an activity that the outside world thinks is wrong, and so you've got it, so there's no like real rules for it, that things can go sideways pretty quickly, and I think that's really, really problematic.